In the vast expanse of human history, where time spirals like an endless river and civilizations rise and fall like waves upon a shore, there exists a singular figure whose presence continues to ripple through the fabric of consciousness itself: Jesus. Not merely as a man, not only as a prophet or teacher, but as a luminous thread woven into the very tapestry of existence. His teachings have echoed across centuries, whispering truths that transcend language, culture, and creed. Yet within these echoes lies a deeper current, one that flows beneath the surface of conventional understanding, a current known as the lost wisdom of Jesus. It is not simply doctrine or dogma, nor is it confined to the pages of Scripture alone. Rather, it is a living stream of insight, hidden in plain sight, waiting for those who seek not just knowledge, but transformation. To speak of secret teachings is not to invoke conspiracy or obscurity, but rather to acknowledge that wisdom often wears veils. Truth, after all, is not always meant for casual consumption. It must be uncovered, unraveled like the petals of a sacred flower blooming in the quiet recesses of the soul. The world we perceive with our senses is but a shadow play, an intricate illusion cast by the interplay of light and form. And yet, behind this veil lies something far greater: a resonance, a frequency, a knowing that transcends logic and speaks directly to the heart. This is the realm where the lost wisdom dwells, not in exclusion from the physical world, but as its hidden architect, its silent pulse. Imagine, if you will, standing at the edge of a great ocean. You see the waves crashing against the shore, hear their rhythmic song, feel the salt in the air. But beneath the surface, unseen by most, lie entire ecosystems, currents flowing in mysterious patterns, creatures moving in harmony with forces beyond comprehension. So too is the wisdom of Jesus. It appears simple on the surface, familiar even, but dive deeper, and you enter a world where paradox becomes clarity, where silence speaks louder than words, where the kingdom of heaven is not some distant promise, but a present reality awaiting recognition. This wisdom does not seek to replace what has come before, nor does it deny the value of tradition or faith. Instead, it invites us to look again, to see with new eyes, to hear with new ears. It suggests that perhaps the divine is not separate from us, but interwoven into the very essence of our being. That perhaps salvation is not something external to attain, but an inner awakening to the truth that was always there, buried beneath layers of fear, conditioning, and forgetfulness. In this way, the lost wisdom is not truly lost. It is simply waiting to be remembered. There are many names for this forgotten path: Gnostic insights, esoteric parables, mystical revelations, but they all point toward the same ineffable source. They speak of a universe governed not by chance or chaos, but by harmony and sacred geometry, where every breath, every thought, every action is part of a grand symphony. The teachings of Jesus, when viewed through this lens, take on a cosmic significance. They become less about rules and more about resonance, less about belief and more about becoming. To follow them is not to adhere to a set of commandments, but to align oneself with the fundamental rhythm of life itself. And so, we begin this journey, not as scholars seeking proof, nor as skeptics demanding evidence, but as seekers drawn by the magnetic pull of something ancient and profound. We walk a path illuminated by symbols, guided by stories that carry within them the weight of eternity. Along the way, we will encounter paradoxes that defy reason yet illuminate truth. We will peel back the layers of literal interpretation to reveal the alchemical gold hidden within metaphor and myth. We will discover that the kingdom of heaven is not above us nor below, but within, a seed planted in the soil of our own consciousness, waiting to sprout into full realization. In the vast mosaic of human thought, where philosophies rise and fall like constellations in the night sky, certain teachings endure. Not because they are rigidly preserved, but because they pulse with a life of their own, whispering across time to those who listen closely enough. The lost wisdom of Jesus is one such current, flowing beneath the surface of conventional understanding, revealing itself not through dogma or doctrine, but through patterns, paradoxes, and the quiet unfolding of inner realization. At its core lies a series of fundamental themes, threads woven into the fabric of existence itself, each one illuminating a different facet of the great mystery. One such theme is the idea that reality, as we commonly perceive it, is but a veil, a shimmering mirage upon the deeper waters of being. Just as light bends when it enters water, distorting our perception of objects beneath the surface, so too does our consciousness filter and shape the world around us. This is not deception, but design. The universe speaks in symbols, and only by learning to read them can we begin to glimpse the truth that underlies all things. In this context, the teachings of Jesus are not merely ethical imperatives or moral exhortations, but keys to unlocking the hidden architecture of reality. They invite us to question what we assume to be real, to look beyond appearances, and recognize the sacred geometry at play in every moment. Another foundational concept is the notion of inner alchemy, the transformation of the self from base metal into gold, from ego-bound identity into luminous awareness. This is not metaphor alone, but a process mirrored in nature, in myth, and in the cycles of the cosmos. Just as the seed must die to become the tree, just as the caterpillar must dissolve before emerging as a butterfly, so too must the seeker undergo an internal death before awakening to a higher state of being. The lost wisdom suggests that salvation is not found in external rites or religious structures, but in the crucible of personal transformation. It is not about following rules, but about becoming something new, something aligned with the eternal rhythm of creation. This journey inward inevitably leads to the recognition of unity, the profound understanding that separation is an illusion, and that all things are interconnected in ways both seen and unseen. The divisions we impose upon the world between self and other, between sacred and profane, between divine and human, are ultimately artificial constructs born of limited perception. The secret teachings reveal that there is no true division between spirit and matter, between heaven and earth. Rather, these are dual expressions of the same underlying reality. To awaken to this truth is to step beyond duality and into a state of wholeness, where love is not merely an emotion, but the very essence of existence itself. Yet another guiding pillar of this ancient wisdom is the principle of inversion. The idea that the highest truths often appear upside down from the perspective of ordinary consciousness. What the world calls strength may in truth be weakness. What is perceived as loss may in fact be gain. This paradoxical nature of spiritual insight challenges our habitual modes of thinking, urging us to let go of fixed notions and embrace the fluidity of truth. It is said that the first shall be last, and the last shall be first, not as a moral lesson, but as a reflection of the way reality truly operates when viewed through the lens of higher awareness. To live by this wisdom is to walk in humility, to see with eyes unclouded by ambition or fear, and to recognize that the kingdom of heaven is not something distant, but something already present, waiting to be acknowledged. These themes, illusion and revelation, transformation and unity, inversion and paradox, are not isolated ideas, but interwoven strands of a single, living truth. They do not exist solely within the realm of abstract philosophy, nor are they meant to remain confined to esoteric circles. Rather, they point toward a lived experience, a way of being in the world that transcends mere belief and enters the domain of direct knowing. To engage with them is to embark upon a path not of accumulation, but of unlearning, to strip away layers of conditioning until only the radiant core remains. In the beginning there was a mountain, not merely a mass of stone and earth rising from the land, but a presence, an ancient sentinel standing watch over the unfolding of time itself. It was upon such a mountain that the seeker once ascended, drawn by an unspoken whisper carried on the wind, a call not heard with ears but felt in the marrow of being. The path was steep, winding through dense forests where shadows danced like living things and rivers sang forgotten hymns. Each step forward seemed to dissolve the world behind, as though the very act of climbing was a shedding of what once was known. At the summit, the air was thin yet vibrant, charged with something unseen, something akin to memory or prophecy. There, beneath a sky so vast it seemed to stretch beyond thought, the seeker encountered a figure cloaked in light, too subtle for the eyes to grasp fully. This one spoke not in words but in impressions, in images woven into the fabric of perception itself. And thus began the telling of the first story, a parable not meant to be understood with the mind alone, but to be lived, breathed, and embodied. The tale spoke of a sower who cast seeds upon many kinds of soil. Some fell upon rocky ground, where they sprouted quickly but withered when the sun grew fierce. Others landed among thorns, which choked their growth before they could bear fruit. But a few found fertile earth, and from them arose plants yielding a harvest beyond expectation. To those who listened only with the intellect, this was a lesson in perseverance or spiritual receptivity. But to those who heard with the soul, it revealed a deeper truth, that consciousness itself is the soil, and the seed is wisdom waiting to take root. The rocks were the hardened beliefs that resist change. The thorns were the distractions of the world, the endless entanglements of desire and fear. Only when the heart is softened, when the mind is still, does the seed find its home and grow into something greater than the sum of its parts. Another story unfolded like ripples upon a pond, one of a lost coin, sought diligently until it was found. On the surface, it appeared to be about diligence, about the value of even the smallest thing. Yet beneath the surface lay another meaning. The coin was not truly lost, it had never moved. It was always where it had been, buried beneath dust and neglect, waiting for someone to remember its worth. So too, the teaching suggested, is the divine spark within each being, not something to be attained, but something already present, hidden beneath layers of forgetfulness. The search was not outward, but inward. The finding was not discovery, but recognition. Then came the tale of the prodigal son, a young man who demanded his inheritance and set forth into distant lands, squandering all he had in reckless living. When famine struck and desperation followed, he returned home expecting rejection. But instead, he was met with open arms. Again, the surface interpretation spoke of forgiveness and redemption, but beneath it pulsed a more profound current. That the return was never about earning favor, but about remembering origin. The father did not wait for apology or proof of worthiness. He simply saw his child and rejoiced. In this, the parable whispered of a reality beyond judgment, beyond merit, beyond time itself. It spoke of a love that does not waver, a belonging that is not conditional, a home that exists even when forgotten. And then there was the story of the leper, shunned, cast out, deemed untouchable. He approached the teacher with a simple plea. "If you are willing, you can make me clean." And the response was immediate. "I am willing. Be cleansed." But what followed was more than physical healing. The leper was restored not only in body but in identity, reintegrated into the community, no longer defined by exclusion. Here, the narrative hinted at a universal law that touch, both literal and metaphorical, has the power to transform. That compassion dissolves boundaries, that presence heals more deeply than any medicine, and perhaps most profoundly, that true purity is not about ritual or status, but about connection, the reweaving of what has been torn apart. Each of these stories, layered in symbol and silence, pointed toward a single luminous truth, that the kingdom of heaven is not a place, nor a reward, nor a future event. It is an inner state, a shift in perception, a realignment with the sacred rhythm of existence. It is not won through struggle, nor earned through sacrifice, but recognized through surrender. Like the lost coin, it has never left. Like the returning sun, it awaits only remembrance. Like the seed in the earth, it waits for the right conditions to bloom. The wind that stirs the leaves in the morning, the breath that rises and falls with each moment, the rhythm of footsteps upon the earth, these are not separate from the wisdom we have traced through symbols and stories. They are its living expression, woven into the fabric of daily existence. The lost teachings of Jesus do not reside solely in ancient texts or esoteric parables. They pulse within the ordinary, waiting to be recognized in the quiet unfolding of life itself. To integrate them is not to retreat from the world, but to see it anew, to walk amidst the noise and motion of existence with eyes unclouded by illusion, hands open to compassion, and a heart attuned to the deeper current beneath all things. Consider the act of listening, not merely hearing words as they pass through the air, but truly listening, allowing sound to become silence, allowing presence to emerge from stillness. This is one of the simplest yet most profound practices rooted in the secret wisdom. So often, we speak before we understand, react before we perceive. But what if we allowed space between stimulus and response? What if instead of grasping for control or certainty, we simply listened to others, to ourselves, to the subtle hum of being that underlies every moment? In this way, we begin to embody the principle of humility, not as submission, but as openness, an acknowledgement that truth is not always immediate, that wisdom unfolds in its own time. Another practice emerges from the recognition that separation is an illusion. We move through life surrounded by countless beings, each carrying their own burdens, their own joys, their own silent prayers. And yet how often do we pass them by without seeing? How often do we reduce them to roles, stranger, colleague, adversary, rather than recognizing the shared essence that pulses beneath all forms? The lost wisdom teaches that to serve another is to serve oneself, not in a transactional sense, but in the deep realization that there is no true division. A simple act of kindness, a moment of genuine connection, a willingness to hold space for someone else's pain. These are not small things. They are the very foundation upon which a new reality is built, one where love is not an abstract ideal, but the very architecture of existence. Then there is the art of inner alchemy, the transformation of self not through force, but through awareness. This does not mean denying the ego nor rejecting the human experience, but rather understanding that identity is fluid, ever-changing like the tides. Just as the caterpillar must dissolve to become the butterfly, so too must we allow our old patterns, our conditioned responses, our rigid beliefs to fall away. This is not destruction, but evolution. It is the willingness to let go of what no longer serves, to release attachments that bind us to suffering, to embrace uncertainty as the gateway to growth. And in doing so, we begin to align with something greater, not an external authority, but the inner knowing that has been present all along, whispering beneath the noise. This journey inward inevitably leads to the dissolution of fear, not because fear disappears entirely, but because we come to see it for what it is, a shadow cast by the mind when faced with the unknown. The secret teachings remind us that nothing is truly lost, that even death is not an end, but a transition. When we live from this understanding, our relationship with life shifts. We no longer hoard security, nor cling desperately to control. Instead, we learn to trust the current, to surrender to the flow, to recognize that even in loss, there is continuity. And from this place of trust arises courage, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. In practical terms, this means making choices that align with deeper values rather than fleeting desires. It means choosing integrity over convenience, compassion over judgment, presence over distraction. It means recognizing that our thoughts shape our reality, that our intentions carry weight, that every action, no matter how small, ripples outward into the vast web of existence. It means cultivating gratitude, not as a sentiment, but as a discipline, training the mind to see abundance rather than scarcity, to find wonder in the mundane, to acknowledge the sacred in the everyday. And perhaps, most importantly, it means embracing paradox. Life does not unfold in neat lines or predictable patterns. There will be moments of clarity followed by confusion, moments of joy intertwined with sorrow, moments of certainty giving way to doubt. This is not failure, but part of the process. The lost wisdom does not promise perfection, nor does it demand unwavering faith. It invites us to hold opposites together, to dwell in the tension between knowing and not knowing, between effort and surrender, between the seen and the unseen. For it is in this space that transformation occurs, where the seed cracks open and new life begins to emerge. And so we arrive at the threshold of silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of something deeper than words can hold. The journey we have traced, the symbols, the stories, the quiet revelations woven into the fabric of daily life, has never been about reaching a destination. It has always been about awakening to what is already here. Beneath the noise, beneath the striving, beneath even the need to understand. Like the lost coin waiting to be found, like the seed buried in darkness before it breaks into light, the wisdom we have explored is not something external to attain. It is the breath that moves through you now, the stillness between thoughts, the knowing that lingers beyond belief. Consider this. The universe does not unfold in straight lines, nor does transformation happen in neat increments. It spirals. It dances. It reveals itself in moments of rupture and revelation. And so too must our understanding evolve, not as a rigid structure built upon fixed ideas, but as a living current, flowing through us, reshaping us with each breath, each choice, each moment of surrender. The secret teachings do not offer certainty. They invite curiosity. They do not promise control. They open the door to trust. They do not demand adherence. They beckon toward becoming. To walk this path is not to abandon the world, but to see it anew. To recognize that every encounter, every challenge, every joy and sorrow is an opportunity for alignment with something greater than the self we believe ourselves to be. It is to understand that love is not merely an emotion, but the very essence from which all things arise. It is to know that compassion is not weakness, but the most powerful force in existence. It is to realize that truth is not something to be possessed, but something to be lived. And yet, knowledge alone is not enough. Insight without action remains mere abstraction, a beautiful thought drifting through the mind but never taking root. Transformation occurs when we allow these truths to shape our choices, to guide our relationships, to inform the way we move through the world. When we choose kindness over judgment, presence over distraction, humility over arrogance, not because we are perfect, but because we are willing, because we remember, even if only for a moment, that we are part of something vast and sacred. This remembering is not passive. It requires intention. It asks us to sit in stillness when the world demands constant motion, to listen when the mind insists on speaking, to feel when logic urges detachment, to question when tradition resists change, to embrace paradox when certainty crumbles, and above all to return again and again to the center of our own being, where the pulse of the universe beats in rhythm with our own heart. There is an ancient saying whispered across cultures and centuries: the kingdom of heaven is within you. Not somewhere far off, not in some distant future, not earned through suffering or sacrifice, but here, now, waiting to be acknowledged. It is not a place, nor a reward, nor a doctrine to be believed. It is a state of being, a shift in perception, a reawakening to the truth that was never lost, only forgotten. So let this not be an end, but a beginning of deeper listening, of more conscious choices, of a life lived not by accident, but by design, not imposed from the outside, but discovered from within. Let it be the start of a journey where questions are more valuable than answers, where mystery is embraced rather than feared, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary simply because we have learned to see. As you step back into the flow of your day, carry this awareness with you. Let it ripple outward, touching all you meet. Let it soften your edges, deepen your breath, widen your gaze. Let it remind you that you are not separate, not lost, not broken. You are whole. You are home. You are the echo of eternity walking through time, carrying within you the same wisdom that once whispered through the sands of Galilee, that still speaks today in the quiet spaces between thoughts. Then let it be so. May these words not settle as dust upon the mind, but awaken something living within you, something ancient, something boundless. May they stir the silent knowing that has always been there, waiting beneath the noise of the world, beneath even the weight of your own thoughts. And may you walk forward not with certainty, but with wonder, not with rigidity, but with openness, not with fear, but with trust in the unfolding mystery of your own being. The path does not end here. It never does. It simply turns, like a river carving its way through stone, like the wind shaping dunes in the desert, like breath moving through the body in rhythms older than time. You are part of this movement. You are both traveler and destination, question and answer, seeker and found. Go, now not away from the world but deeper into it, not to change yourself but to remember who you already are. Carry this wisdom not as a burden but as a light. Let it guide your steps, soften your heart, open your hands. Let it remind you that you are never alone, never separate, never outside, the sacred current of life itself. And when doubt arises, as it surely will, return here. Return to the stillness, return to the breath, return to the knowing that cannot be spoken, only lived, for the kingdom is near. Not in some distant realm, not in some future salvation, but here, wherever you are, whenever you choose to see. This is the lost wisdom. This is the eternal truth. This is your inheritance. Walk in it, live it, become it, and may your journey be one of endless awakening.